Awesome. Thank you so much, Patty, and really appreciate all of you for taking the time out to have this chat with us today. I'm really excited about our panel as well. I do not intend to take a ton of time here at the top. I really just want to provide a quick overview of the Home Energy Score program at DOE, some of the things that we've been working on, and how we think Home Energy Score can help. So where I'd like to begin is talking about some of the problems that exist out in the marketplace today, and really just starting with just the fact that the residential efficiency market is broken. We know that homeowners, renters, residents in general care about the energy performance of their house, whether it's for saving energy dollars, saving carbon emissions, improving the comfort of their home, improving the indoor air quality. There's lots of reasons that people really like to have energy efficient homes, but they don't understand what it takes to get there, and they don't understand whether even they already have it. There's not a wide acceptance yet of a lot of the data standards that would help mortgage lenders, real estate professionals understand this information and share it. Meanwhile, we know that this is remains a problem for folks. A lot of folks do not have access to energy efficiency in housing that exists today. We know that residents are commonly relying on other funding sources to cover their energy bills. It's the most commonly reported reason back in 2012 for individuals seeking payday loans, and 1 in 5 households reported reducing or forgoing necessities such as food or medicine to pay an energy bill. So this is a real problem for people in the out in the world today, and but we haven't set up people with the tools they need in order to fix this for themselves. So if we click next, you can see that in my very basic graphic here, the idea is for Home Energy Score to fill this gap and to be able to make the market actually move towards supporting energy investments in housing. Next slide. So, you know, some more discussion, not just the dollar impacts that people are experiencing with housing, but also just thinking about the status of U.S. housing and households. 50% of U.S. homes are over 40 years old. 41% of households are estimated to be income qualified for the Weatherization Assistance Program. Many single-family homes are renter occupied, meaning they don't have access or incentive for energy efficiency. 91% of single-family homes do not have a heat pump. Almost half have no wall insulation, and the median American household has $11,000 in savings, almost $12,000 in savings, and 30% have less than $1,000 in savings. So when we think about kind of the scale of the problem, and we're talking about improving energy efficiency and really what it means to make it accessible for all, I think it's important we come at it eyes wide open to what the problem is actually looking like for folks, and that there's a lot of people that need to be reached. There's also, I also like to be eyes wide open to where is the money, right? So we have a ton of money that's coming out of the federal government and things. We have the Weatherization Assistance Program. We have utilities that have been putting spending of residential efficiency programs. And of course, we have the landmark bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act that are contributing billions of dollars to support energy efficiency in housing. But proportionally, you can look at these colors, and it does not even come close to the average annual mortgage origination between 2009 to 2019. That's almost $2 trillion every single year in mortgage origination. So of course, we couldn't take all of that money and turn it into energy efficiency dollars. This is money that's being lent based off of the asset value of the housing. But even if we could get a sliver of that money, it would make a massive, massive difference to absolutely scaling the size of the residential efficiency market and supporting greater access to residential efficiency throughout the country. Next slide. So that's really to kind of frame up how Home Energy Score fits in. The goal is to build market value for home energy efficiency through standard data and metrics that are applicable to all existing homes, to be able to tap into some of these housing market structures that help create the market demand for efficiency overall. It works with single-family homes and townhomes, and our focus areas are consumer education, data aggregation, and real estate integration. We can go to the next slide. So I won't spend a ton of time here. I know some folks online are maybe already aware of the program, and I recommend checking out homeenergyscore.gov to learn more. But it's designed to be a miles per gallon rating for homes, or similar to a nutrition facts label, but for housing. It's based on the energy assets that are in the home, and is meant to convey parts of the home, to give energy information about parts of the home that convey at time of sale. And is meant to provide nationally applicable results that are comparable across homes, regardless of their current occupancy status. It then produces a report where it provides a 1 through 10 score, cost-effective recommendations to save energy and improve the score, and then lots of data points that just help people understand what actually went into their score. And then we've been working on lots of ways to link to financing products and industry standards for data. Next slide. So for folks that are interested, we'd be happy to do a side presentation here, but to understand how it works, a professional assessor that's certified through the program collects home energy feature data, enters it into our online tool, either directly or through a web API through over a dozen software tools that are connected. And that tool then runs a building energy model using elements pulled in from all of our brilliant national lab partners to reproduce the home energy score report. And it does all of this calculation typically in about 70 seconds on average to produce the 6-page report and product. Next slide. So I already mentioned it on a previous slide. Our goals are really around consumer education, data aggregation, and real estate integration. So on the consumer side, we're focused on improving consumer energy literacy, making sure people understand, what are the features that contribute to energy costs and how can they affect them, and provide that roadmap, both direction and financing opportunities. Data aggregation, so that at a city or state level, we can get consistent information on housing energy features, target upgrades and incentives based on where there is need, track impacts and analyze those gains, and then drive real estate market interest. And then, of course, the third one, working with real estate partners to support data integration into real estate valuation services to enable large-scale mortgage financing, and create a market pull that then creates local economic development and supports, folks that can access these features in housing, not through some of our programs, that they can just do that on their own. Next slide. So lots of logos here. I think that's the important part of this slide. We have lots of, state and local home energy score policies and programs. There are more on the way, and they are not just the folks that we have represented on this call, but really wanted to highlight some of the folks that we do have here for our presentation. But yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to incorporate home energy score. I think is one of the most important things there. It's really just a tool and then can be used in a whole bunch of ways. A big important piece for us has been ensuring that home energy score is doing its part to support lower income homeowners, buyers, and renters. We do see, a scoring program fitting into a larger toolbox of a low income efficiency program as well as efficiency financing programs, so that folks who are in the rental market can better understand a house that they're maybe going to move into, its energy performance. They can help people capture the benefits of participating in an efficiency program when they go to put their home on the market for resale. And it's really designed in a way to show that if you have lower energy costs, that's great. And that shows in terms of improvement on the score itself. And so we want to kind of reduce a false association that only efficient homes exist for wealthy folks or only for new homes. There's lots of things that existing homes can do to really have high quality efficiency features. Next slide. So just wanted to highlight some of our latest research findings. There's plenty more reports that are available on our website, but just that we have an exciting report from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab describing how actual home energy scores have affected home value and mortgage performance. And we do see in our real data that home energy scores are associated with higher purchase prices for homes, as well as lower estimated annual energy bills, and also lower risk of 30-day delinquency for the mortgage. And then we also can do various experiments to show that when people look at mock real estate listings, they really do value this information. There's been a number of other studies focused not necessarily specifically on home energy score, but that really show when you give people information, they value it, they understand it, and they take action accordingly. And that's really the type of nudging that we want to be doing with this type of program. Next slide. So as I said, there's plenty more information on the website. We have a whole page dedicated to what it takes to become a partner, if that interests you. Our team is also always happy to connect and discuss options on the table. And I believe our next slide shows our wide array of team members, there we go, who are happy to help and figure out how to make this work locally for you. Like I said, it is a tool. There's a lot of different types of programs and policies that it can work for, and we'd love to be connected. So with that, I believe this is my last slide, and I'll turn it over to Roger Kainu to talk about some of his work at the Oregon Department of Energy.
Hello there. Thanks, Maddie. Lots of information. I'm sure glad you're recording this and going to provide the slides to folks so they can pick up on it. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'm Roger Kainu. I'm an analyst with the Oregon Department of Energy. We've been involved with home energy scoring for quite some time now. We actually first started taking a look at it back in 2009, and then from that process, we moved it forward. It's been a statewide strategy. Oregon uses a strategy of responding to local jurisdictions who request energy and climate planning information. We're not pushy about it. We don't sell to folks. We don't try to encourage them in ways that aren't appropriate. So as a state, we're there as a resource to localities. And I think that's an underlying message I'd really like to convey to the audience. It's important to serve. So we encourage policy decision makers toward mandatory scoring when we're in those discussions, and we can get into why that might be. I think you probably already know. Real estate listings, we do the trigger for the home energy score at the time of sale of a real estate listing, which gives us a real good appropriate time to get involved in that financial decision. We connect with the Green Building Registry. That's an Earth Advantage product that displays all of the energy efficiency scores that have been conducted in your area. So that really works well, and I can dig into the details on that a little bit later. And Odo, to implement this process, we contract with Earth Advantage. They're our current implementer right now. They're a national organization, understand home energy score really well. So we found success with them. And we also use funding by some of our own agency, ODO, as we call it, Oregon Department of Energy, and also SCP funding in the background. Next slide. So the drivers for home energy scoring in Oregon, we've had a lot to do in the background with tax credit programs and energy efficiency programs brought about by utilities. I'm sure you're all aware of those type of programs, but we didn't really find enough traction with those. So we wanted to add to it in Oregon. So the legislature and the governor established a stakeholder panel to take a look at why we should have a home energy scoring program or another energy scoring program in the state. And at the time when we developed the stakeholder panel, there was actually 3 scoring programs operating in the state. There's the HERS program, and our Energy Trust of Oregon has a EPS program, they call it. Those 2 are based on new construction. So we were missing the existing buildings piece. So the stakeholder panel decided that we should have one score that goes across the whole state for home energy scoring, and the panel selected HES through the US DOE. It's been a great scoring system for us. We also, as I indicated, we encourage mandatory scoring. We developed a qualified state assessor pool, and that was an interesting task because we just established a lot of different requirements that a state assessor would need to have: some basic building science principles, some mentoring, Then they go through the simulation training with US DOE, and then they go through more mentoring on site with other assessors that have learned how to score. And it produces a pretty good trained assessor. They also have credentials as well, professional credentials. They need to be licensed and bonded with the state. So basically, we have a professionalism that's operating with the state when it comes to assessors. And having one score throughout the whole state that is known for existing and new construction buildings is really important too, because it gives us an accuracy and consistency across the state that we really appreciate. The US DOE HES system is seen as accurate and consistent, as noted here on the slide, and it's easy to understand. And just to take a minute here, how many of you don't need to answer this, but how many folks out there know at least 5 realtors? How many know at least 5 homeowners? Well, there's a lot. And there's not only a lot of information that's missing out there, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And when you take a look at having a score across the whole state, you want it to be easy to understand. So you only get one chance with a lot of homeowners. You only get one chance with a realtor, and explaining that system to them really becomes highly important. So, and one other thing I just want to bring up, something that isn't valued as much is what I think it should be, and that is the US DOE HES team they're so professional. You can see how this slide deck was even built, the information that Maddie relayed. It's just a great team to work with. And as a state representative that depends on a system like US DOE, for the credibility that I get because of US DOE is exceptional. It's just a great group of people to work with, and they know what they're doing. Next slide, please. So as you can see by the slide, Oregon has conducted over 35,000 scores since we started in about 2017 with a very slow start in the first year. Portland came online in 2018. Dirk will be talking to you about that in just a moment. And then we really started ramping up. And even considering a pandemic, that's a lot of scores for us to have conducted at this point. We also have 3 cities now in Oregon that have mandatory policies. There's Portland, Milwaukee, and Hillsborough. All 3 of those cities are right around the Portland metro area and have understood the value of home energy scoring. So it covers about 18% of the state's population. Many cities are working toward a policy in various stages and in discussions with their councils. Myself and our implementer Earth Advantage, Anthony Roy from Earth Advantage, we attend a lot of council sessions to help council members understand the different nuances and the details about home energy scoring. We're there to serve. So we have over 200 assessors that have completed the home energy score training, in which about 65 are actively involved in the market right now. And I'll take a side note and say most of the discussions I've had with cities, there's a concern, do we have enough assessors in our locality to service the market? And in fact, it's usually more than what you need. Once you stand up the program, you usually have a lot of market actors coming to you because you're creating a market. So rest assured, they'll come. And this assessor pool a lot of them are generated by weatherization contractors and home inspectors that find it easy to do this kind of work and make that transition. And in the future, we should have a rental-focused addition to our current HES program in Oregon, and that should be an interesting walk. Getting rental properties scored, I think it'd be very valuable, but it's a careful walk trying to get that kind of program coordinated with cities. Next slide, please. So future planning, I just mentioned the rental work that we're going to be working on. But as I need to indicate again, the underlying mission for our state government is to serve the local governments. We continue to meet with local governments and assist in planning. I think I'm talking with 5 or 6 cities currently that are in that process. Some are very close to approving a mandatory home energy score program for the locality. Others are a little further back. We offer a tailored approach to a scorecard, and that means we'll allow the city to make some changes to the scorecard based on their motivations that they have. Not every city is the same, and we don't treat them that way. We also do a lot of program support by training lenders, appraisers, and realtors. We found this to be a really good way to reduce the agitation, if there is any, to home energy scoring coming in as a mandatory policy. If you have educated people, you'll have more understanding and a lot less tension. And we encourage updates and improvements to the US DOE offering. And I know Torsten is keeping us on point with some new additions and changes to the home energy score system and the way it can go after multifamily even here coming up, which is a huge change. And we really encourage the US DOE to continue that sort of good changes to meet the needs of the market. And also in Oregon, early on, we developed a home energy score user group, which has been valuable, meeting with all the cities that are interested in Oregon in a home energy score policy. We meet with them and just exchange ideas, best practices. We have a really good time just chatting with each other too. Next slide. So those are some of the things that we have going on in Oregon. You'll see my contact information. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Never feel hesitant to pick up the phone, give me a call or an email or a Teams meeting, and we can chat things through. I know there's a ton here to soak in, so we can do that in a more detailed conversation. Next up, we have Dirk Larson with the City of Portland.
Thanks, Roger. And yeah, Roger and the Oregon Department of Energy has been a great partner for us, and I don't think we could have done what we've done without your help, Roger. So thank you. My name's Dirk Larson. I'm the Buildings Program Coordinator for the City of Portland. I manage the Home Energy Score program, and I also manage our commercial energy reporting program as well. And then I get to work on policy development in my when I'm not busy, which I don't know when that is. So Portland's had a home energy score program since 2016. After 3 city council hearings and several amendments, Portland City Council unanimously adopted our home energy score ordinance on December 14th, 2016. And I think the main driver to make this happen was our 2015 climate action plan, which had a goal to reduce emissions by 80% by 2050. And residential buildings account for almost half of the emissions. So our goals from that plan were to educate people on energy efficiency and CO2 emissions for their homes. And then we wanted to get an inventory of assets within our city, because as you all know, if you don't know what you have, you don't have anything to measure. So really knowing what we have and having things to measure really helps that. Our funding, it just comes out of our general fund. People always ask how much the City of Portland costs, and we spend about the equivalent of 1 FTE on the home energy score program for half of my position, and then our outsourced help desk as well. Champions, when we stood this up, gosh, we reached out to a lot of folks. Of course, Odo and Roger were champions, and Earth Advantage and some other folks. But we reached out to representatives from the real estate industry, energy efficiency and home performance folks, energy efficiency advocates, equity organizations representing low-income homeowners, communities of color, tenants and advocates for ownership and affordable housing, as well as citizens. Our rollout, gosh, we couldn't have done the rollout. We couldn't have done a lot without the partnership we had with Earth Advantage, who worked with us, and also Odo to help roll out the program. Next slide. So yeah, we were asked how we manage our our program. And like I said, I spent about half my time managing the program, but our help desk is actually outsourced to Earth Advantage, who performs compliance checks, customer service, and also helps with program management assistance. And I think the consistency and the institutional knowledge and also the feedback I get from them regularly has been invaluable. We had, my position was actually vacant for a little while the other person left to go somewhere else. My position was vacant, so I was able to kind of, they really helped me hit the ground running when I started working there, and I think that's really important when, especially when there's turnover in programs, you need that institutional knowledge, and they were really good about providing that. They have a team of folks with deep industry knowledge being able to provide feedback and guidance, and I meet with them on a regular basis. It's been incredibly valuable for me. They also, like Roger was saying, help manage the Green Building Registry, which is a repository for homes with ratings like HES and HERS and other ratings, and provides custom reports to meet community needs. They have what they're calling Home Energy Labeling Partnership, and that includes training, policy guidance, and helps manage home performance data, and EA has been an excellent partner. Next slide. So our progress to date, I noticed my number is about the same as Peter's. I guess most of the home energy score numbers have been coming out of Portland for the state, but so we have about 35,000 scores since January 1st. We have roughly 50 assessors for Portland, and as Roger stated before, we have other cities within our metro area that also have home energy score requirements, so we share that assessor pool with them. And that consists of contractors, appraisers, home inspectors, energy efficiency contractors, folks with real estate backgrounds, independent scoring businesses, home performance contractors, and energy modelers. Next slide. So looking ahead, like I said, I manage the home energy score program, but I also manage the commercial energy reporting program, which has been a bit more of our focus on policy development. We've done about 2 years of policy development to come up with the climate and health standards for existing buildings. And that was led by a community of Black, Indigenous, and persons of color folks called the Building Community Shifting Power Coalition, who came up with these HEART standards. And out of these HEART standards and out of our further stakeholder engagement, there was a clear preference that renters wanted to know what the assets were in the apartment they were moving into, what the cost would be, and just what they could expect. So hopefully by spring of next year, we'll pass this and also pass a expansion of the home energy score program to include all rentals in the city of Portland. We'll see how that goes. And also, I think probably like everyone else on this call, what do we do with IRA? How does the data we've collected from these 35,000 homes incorporate into the IRA policy? How do we help them get the word out? Will there be a pre and post retrofit use for home energy score has been one of my questions as well. Next slide. And yeah, thanks everybody. Here's my contact information. I'm more than willing to chat with anybody, so please reach out. And there we go. That's who's next. Thanks.
Thanks. My name is Emily Alvarez, and I work for StopWaste, who is a member of the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN. So next slide. Who is BayREN? We are a program administrator of ratepayer funds that are distributed by the California Public Utilities Commission. So our funding is a little bit different since this is coming from utility bill charges. So BayREN is a collaboration of the 9 Bay Area counties who have come together to apply for these ratepayer funds. And we exist to help meet the state goals of energy savings and to complement the programs that are done by the investor-owned utilities by instituting these programs through and by local governments. So at the moment, we have 6 programs in our portfolio, but I'm going to concentrate on the green labeling program, for which I'm the lead. So next slide. The green labeling program is a voluntary home energy, well, includes a voluntary home energy score program that was launched in 2018. This was scaled from the Building Emissions Savings Ordinance passed in Berkeley in 2015, which Ammon will talk more about after me. Our programs are divided in BayREN into 3 different categories: equity, market support, and resource savings. And so this is considered a market support program. And so you can see here we have these kind of 3 pillars of BayREN. The 2 in blue are what's highlighted that our program is supposed to work towards. So that's building human and organizational infrastructure. So this is, you know, the deployment of home and training of home energy score assessors, getting people into that field and testing innovative solutions. And so that solution for us, working towards our goal of increasing energy transparency and the availability of information in single family homes, is the home energy score. So next slide. The program has, like I said, we've been doing scores since 2015 with Berkeley, but you can tell in the bar graph that those blue scores, we were pretty much just Berkeley scores until we officially launched as our own program in 2018, where you can see things spiked quite a bit. We had a tough year in 2020, unsurprisingly, but then 2021 surprised us all. So we really have seen a growth in the demand for home energy score that has been sustaining. So already in 2022, we are, you know, probably going to surpass what we did in 2021. So in total, we've done over 16,000 scores, and we're hoping to hit 5,000 scores this year. So that's what I mean. Our progress is really spiked and has held steady at that high rate. We still are doing a lot of BESO scores despite working in 109 jurisdictions throughout the Bay Area. Still, a lot of our scores are happening in Berkeley. And we do have a rebate for scores that happen outside of the city of Berkeley. So that is one of the drivers of the program. And so we've given out almost $3 million in rebate funds. And this is done with a pool of 30 or so active assessors. Next slide. So StopWaste is the program partner, the DOE partner. We work with these assessors, do the QA, QC for them through a consultant. And then we've also developed a custom report and recommendations. I know this is small, so you know, we cover some of the basics. So if you click through there's some animations here. We give the basic information, so the home energy score, the estimates of greenhouse gas and energy consumption and utility bills. Then what we really want to do is get ideally upgrades made. So we refer people to our energy advisor, which is a program through our single family rebate program in BayREN. And we have custom recommendations in the report that align with those Home Plus rebates so that hopefully we can get people into upgrading their homes. And we do track that. It is about maybe, it varies, but has been as low as 7% during COVID and then as high as I think 18%. So next slide. Things we're trying to do different. Electrification is a big goal in California and the Bay Area. So we've added an addendum in 2020 called the electrification checklist that has the assessors look at a few different items like electrical panels, stoves, and has them assess the home for whether or not it's a good candidate for electrification and fuel switching. And we have seen that as we've run this program, we've been getting more and more electrification recommendations and fewer gas recommendations. So it's been pretty exciting to see that. Next slide. And we also have connected to Earth Advantage's Green Building Registry to try and make this information more publicly available. It's something, again, we'll be working on in the future. Right now, they're publicly available in Berkeley and maybe in the future for other scores too. Next slide. And then it's come up before. Oh, I guess these were animations. You can just click, I guess, 3 more times. So it's come up before that we also, the green labeling program is not just home energy score. The other half of really what we focus on is working with the real estate community to try and help them understand and become partners in this work. So at this point, hopeful, this is from 2018 through I think August or so of this year. So hopefully we'll pass 1,000 real estate professionals trained by the end of the year. It's a lot of work. There are many thousands of realtors in the Bay Area, so this is still just a small handful, but we feel this is a really important part of the work with Home Energy Score. Next slide. So yeah, this is my contact information. Like everyone else has said, feel free to reach out at any time, but I'll pass it over to Ammon Reagan from the City of Berkeley now.
Great, thanks, Emily. Yeah, so my name is Ammon Reagan, work with the City of Berkeley. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we use the Home Energy Score as part of our kind of existing buildings program in the city. So we have the Building Emission Savings Ordinance, which touches every building in the city, from a single-family home to a large commercial building, and we have varying requirements for different sizes of buildings. And so for us, we use the Home Energy Score for single-family homes, and we have a mandatory time of listing policy. Next slide. And so for how our program is structured, so we have BayREN, they're their regional home energy score partner. So they're the ones that do the assessor trainings, the QA/QC, and maintain the home energy score database. And then Berkeley in our city is the local program administrator. And so we manage the actual ordinance and the mandatory program, monitor listings and compliance, and provide compliance support to buyers, sellers, and realtors. And so in our city, the program is funded through a 50-50 cost share between the general fund of the city and filing fees, because we do require a filing fee to be submitted for every assessment that comes in through BASO. And the next slide. And so then, Berkeley has, or go back one slide real quick. So Berkeley has a long history of energy efficiency. So BASO started in 2015, but we've had a time of sale program for residential properties since the 1980s. And so back in the 80s, we required homes to complete 11 minimal energy efficiency measures at time of sale or transfer. But over time, we weren't seeing the emissions reductions needed to hit our goals. Those measures were minimal and were too general, not specific to individual homes. And we wanted a more custom path for building owners that tied into the regional programs. And so we moved from requiring those minimal energy efficiency measures to assessments. And so that happened in 2015 through BASO. And the next slide. So we explored several different types of energy audits when we were building on our program. The criteria for these was to see, or we wanted an assessment that was approved by a state or federal entity, minimal administration, and easy to understand. And so that's how we honed in on the Home Energy Score. Let's go to the next slide. So we chose the Home Energy Score 1 because it's a national DOE program. It's a simple score of 1 to 10, which makes it easy to communicate to people throughout the home buying process. And because we had a regional partner in BayREN, it required less staff to implement the program, because BayREN is the one that does the QA/QC and the assessor training. And then another kind of big perk to the Home Energy Score is that it is aligned with our regional incentive programs. And go to the next slide. So progress to date. So we've had BASO in our Home Energy Score program since 2015. And since then, we've had about 2,500 Home Energy Score assessments. And we have roughly about 300 to 400 Home Energy Scores that come in per year. And then the average score in Berkeley is about a 4.4. For our assessors, there's 13 companies that complete assessments in Berkeley with about 28 individual assessors. And this is a subset of the regional kind of pool of assessors that works across the 9 Bay Area counties. And then the impacts of the program, because it is tied to the regional incentive program, we're hoping that the Home Energy Score leads to upgrades and then decreased emissions. And I'll go to the last slide. So looking ahead, so we do have a mandatory program for getting the Home Energy Score, but we don't require any improvement. And so we have a directive from council that was passed in an amendment to our ordinance in 2020 that's directing us to develop energy upgrade requirements. And so we're planning to utilize the home energy score that, say a seller would get the score down at time of listing, and the buyer would be required to complete some sort of upgrade that was identified from the home energy score. And so that's kind of how we're planning to utilize it further to keep driving emission reductions in our city. And next slide. Yep, so there's my contact information. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, I have a kind of a more smaller city perspective. So happy to give more information and pass it off to the next person.
Thank you, Ammon. It's Pete Backhouse. Sorry about my video freezing, but computers are what they are. I'm the Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Gainesville. We're going to talk about using home energy scores within the rental housing market here in Gainesville. Next slide. Thank you. Why did we settle on the home energy score? We had a program in Gainesville called landlord licensing for a number of years, which dealt with rental units, housing, single family, mostly around the university. But the commission decided to reassess that and look at it broader because of issues that had been occurring with folks afraid to complain about minimum housing issues who are renting units, but they also wanted to look at becoming more energy efficient as a community, so they explored ways to do that. Over a year's time, they held a series of hearings with the public to get input about doing this. And as a result of that, they crafted some guidelines for us to put together an ordinance regarding specific minimum housing requirements, as well as energy efficiency requirements, such as insulation, water efficient toilets and shower heads, etc., in order to make rental units more efficient in their energy usage. Next slide, please. We are funding this program by the rental fees that are being paid by the landlords. This year, it's $140 to get your residential rental unit permit. And this is the timeline and how this happened. After the hearings, we actually wrapped up at the end of 2019. And then it took us until November 2020 because of the pandemic to get the final ordinance adopted. We incorporated an education campaign where we reached out to our local landlords and property managers as well as renters, did a series of webinars to provide the information that had changed in the ordinance from what it previously was. We initially decided to go with an outside vendor to do our inspections. That has now changed because of some issues that cropped up with the way the inspections were being handled, excuse me. The ordinance went into effect in October of last year, and we began our inspections of the units. The inspections are done by one inspector. He handles the minimum housing as well as the energy efficiency inspection. We are training inspectors to do all of that. We proposed earlier this year to bring the inspections in-house because of the issues that developed, and the commission agreed to that. We paused our inspections while we got our inspectors hired and trained to get it back up and running. And now, as of this month, we are out doing inspections again in the community. Next slide. We did about 450 inspections with all of the issues that cropped up. We're looking to average about 2,000 a year because of the number of rentals that we have. And our rentals are defined as anything that is 4 units or less. So quadruplexes or less are regulated by us. Apartments themselves are not, because they're covered by the state, not for home energy efficiency, but in terms of regulation. We have 5 code officers who are doing the actual inspections. That was determined by a staffing study that we did to come up with what would need to work in order to get the inspections and any minimum housing complaints that came in done within our community. Again, we anticipate 2,000 a year. Once the score is determined, we are required to provide it to the landlords, and the landlords are required to provide it to any prospective renters. That is written into the ordinance, so it has to be disclosed as to what the home energy score is for any given unit. Next slide. This is my contact information. Phone number and email if you have any questions specific to renting. A couple of the things that I saw come up in the chat was regarding what we do with our inspectors, and yes, they are inspectors and assessors. And the other is, how do we strongly encourage landlords to comply? We made it mandatory in the ordinance that if they are going to get a rental permit, they have to come into compliance with the energy standard. So there's no option there. If they want to rent it, it's got to meet the standards, and we're inspecting them. Every unit has to be inspected at least once every 4 years. So we will make sure that they come into compliance. As a side note, the energy efficiency standards will be increasing in 2026. For example, we're going from R19 insulation now to R30, and everybody is aware of what those increases are. Many of the property owners are planning accordingly. Thank you.
And with that, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And thank you to our speakers as well.